The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Yeah, that's what it is. I guess we gotta do it then. You alright? Chill, cool, out, money, West Coast, let's get it. Strap in, let's take a ride. Oh yeah, it's about that time, right? Been waiting all week to get to this. It's finally time to defy life. Let's chop it up, keep it real, no other way. That's what we do. We might disagree, but it's all love. Guarantee we gon' speak the truth. Yeah, this hit different. My guys with me now. Who's with us? Stick around for a few minutes. It's contagious. You'll get it. You downloaded the realest. Don't feel us, forget out. You not rocking with Defy Life, then what's your life about? This ain't Defy Life. Told you. On to the shy line. I'm gonna let this ride out though. Welcome back to the Defy Life Podcast, powered by the Defy Life Podcast Network. This is episode 160, ladies and gentlemen. This episode is sponsored by Bud Bottles, home of the Bud Bottle and the Bud Freshener. Y'all come on in, wipe your feet, close the door behind you. I'm your host, J.R. Glimpf. Joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Thomas Stevens, Alvin Glimpf. What's good with you, Thomas?
Man, you know what it is, man. It's I'm doing the best I can right now. You guys might hear a lot of banter in the background, man. It's bedlam in here. My kids are squabbling with me, so I'm gonna try to keep them down, keep them at bay as much as possible. But I can't wait to get it popping.
Hey, there's riot and protest going all over the country, including your house.
Right. Protect your kneecaps, man. Protect your kneecaps. Oh man, well, if you need us, man, we can be on the way. I don't know how much of assistance I can be, but try to keep them in check. This kid says bedlam in his house. Oh man, Al, what's good, man?
Bro, hanging in there, man. You know, it's been rough time. Personally, it's been rough. The world's been rough. So, you know, everything, glad I get another week on this earth and doing this show. Glad I got my health and, you know, everything being everything, I'm doing pretty good. So, looking forward to this show. Good to be here with y'all. Likewise.
I'm glad your kids ain't on your back because I can't help you because your son got grown man strength and your daughter's smarter than me. So I can't do nothing for you.
So, hey, it has forced me to be very strategic in my movements nowadays.
Right.
Very strategic. But yeah. You know, it's good to have him here, especially during these times.
Right.
To put this together. So.
Cool. Well, yeah, man. You know, I'm this. I know we always say this is the highlight of our week, and we look forward to the show and all that stuff, and that's always true, but never truer than now. You know, between, you know, we kind of touched on before everything kind of started boiling over. And like the day the video was released of George Floyd being murdered, you know, in broad daylight, we kind of touched on it. And I don't think all of us have seen the entire thing yet. And that's how much has happened in a week. And of course, we're at a point now where, you know, the officer, or the former officer, but at the time, the officer who, Darren Chauvin, who had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, has been fired. The other three officers are likely to be, they've been fired as well. They're likely to be charged at some point with some range of crime in the near future. And, you know, people across the country in all 50 states are protesting. And shit is real. It's almost like coronavirus never existed. It's weird. So before we get started, I just want to let everybody know, all your listeners know, we're kind of going to take a different approach to this episode. We're just going to have a free-flowing conversation about everything that's going on. We didn't want to limit ourselves to topics or even think about time slots. And so we just wanted to talk. So before we get into this conversation, I want to ask both of you, summarize what you're feeling right now in one statement for me. Thomas, you first.
Wow. One statement.
And I mean this. I meant to put y'all on the spot with this one because I know how much I enjoy y'all's raw feedback.
Right. Right. Wow. I'm thinking. Because so many words are popping in my head.
Right.
So many words are popping in my head. Right now, how I feel, I I just feel a sense of, I feel it's going to be groundbreaking. You know, the entire ordeal. That's where I am with this right now.
Okay.
As in what's going on, the totality of it, what's the charges, I really truly think he's going to be indicted. I think he's going to be convicted. So at this point now, I guess I see it as being groundbreaking. I see Derek Chauvin as being the poster child when everything changed. Mm-hmm. You know, as in the guys getting away with flat out murder.
Right. Okay. That is powerful, and that will be groundbreaking because, as I posted on Facebook this week, it was an astounding stat that Michael Vick did more time in prison. What did he do? 22 months. He did more time in prison for killing a dog than than all the combined time that the police officers that have killed the last 493 unarmed black men in this country. Wow. So that would be groundbreaking if he does significant time for this. Al, for you, what's your what one statement would best sum up how you're feeling right now?
And like Pooh, there's a few words that went through my mind, a few emotions, because I'm just very emotional because of what's going on right now in my life. The word that I want to throw out there is numb. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because personally I have lost 3 people that I care very dearly about in the last 2 weeks. Right. Like elders. Our aunt, the matriarch of my father's side of the family. Mm-hmm. My Aunt Clara, the 90-year-old matriarch of my mother's side of the family. Woman grew up as my mother's sister. And then my cousin Gwen, my god sister, in the last 2 weeks. Wow. So it could be dealing with all of that. Mm. But it also could be the stat that you just referred to. That 490 times cops have killed an unarmed black man. And they have none of them have done what I would call appropriate, significant time consequences if, based on what the stat you just said. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, 490 times, that's 490 times that a jury has not held them accountable. Right. And I'm going to stop there because that statement is where I'm at in all of this. Mm-hmm. The jury not holding people accountable. That's just where I'm at in this space right now. That's all I think about.
Right. Wow. Yeah, and it's funny you say numb and emotion because like my one statement and how I'm feeling right now is it's kind of like to be black in America is to like not be able to express your full gamut of emotions without having to take into like having to think about making someone else comfortable, and that includes other black folks. Like, and I'm sure you two have experienced this, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have experienced this, if not all. But to be black and to be angry, and have to think about, keeping my anger in check, so I don't scare people, or I don't make somebody uncomfortable, or being vulnerable and having to not making other black folks around me uncomfortable, or making other black dudes uncomfortable because I'm being vulnerable. Everything, being too happy, being too excited, showing too much enthusiasm for something my kids like, anything. You're always conscious of showing too much emotion at some point, even if it's a come and go moment. That's how I'm feeling right now. Because regardless of what you say, you feel like somebody's uncomfortable. So, I don't know. I guess we'll start at the beginning. Al, so I heard this today. I heard someone say that if they, because it took them 2 days to charge the one officer. Do you think if they'd immediately charged him or immediately arrested him, none of this would be going on? Because I heard if they just arrested him immediately, none of this would be happening.
I wouldn't say none of it. It might have been slow to occur. But I'm not, and I can't say I was following it as it started to begin. I really kind of came on late based on all the stuff I was doing in my life. So I can kind of remember my son coming at me one morning like, yo, did you hear they going at it in Minnesota right now? They like protesting and looting, and I was like, what? And he's telling me the stories of stuff he's seen on social media. Yeah. So I can't say if like the impetus was, I wouldn't have followed it, but I think as mad and angry and how impactful watching that video was for many people in this country, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the same day, the next day, if eventually, like if this doesn't spark off, because it just doesn't make any sense, and some people are very angry. So I'm not going to say I agree with that statement.
Okay. Pooh, what about you? You think they immediately made an arrest? If none, we wouldn't be where we're at right now.
I don't think we'll be where we are in Minnesota. I think if they arrest him in a matter of hours, and this is going to be going on, we're going to prosecute him. We're going to look at it. This is that and the third. I don't think we get this eruption. As of now, Monday, Tuesday. I just think, okay, it was boiling over. It was at a boiling point. But then when the masses begin to think, yo, somebody else about to get away with that, he just murdered that kid in cold blood in front of everybody, bro, we can't let that happen. We can't let this go down. And there it was. So that was the major catalyst on setting a spark to it was a spark that sent the nation, literally up in flames.
Right. Yeah. I think any delay just kind of stirred the pot, and it's like with anything that's whether any analogy you want to make, stirring the pot, shorten the fuse, whatever you want. It sped up the process of and agitated people's anger. But again, like Al said, it's that number 493 times that. And most of those didn't even get to a jury because charges were never pressed. So it's that. It's just where we are. And I know, Pooh, me and you talked over the last week or so, especially the last couple of days, about people passing judgment on those who decided to. And let me get this straight first. For those who decided to, do damage to property or buildings or throw bottles or whatever that is. For people passing judgment on how people are expressing their anger and their frustration. First of all, I want to say, if you're naive enough to think that there's only the people who are on the side of the protesters are doing damage to property and to people, and you may want to get your brain checked, because there is proof, and there's not just this time proof. There's history of plants and provocateurs and people coming from other states just to cause damage, to make it appear that all these protesters are causing all this damage. So please don't be that naive. But to those who are actually turning to a violent side from being protesters, Pooh, how do you feel about the looting and the rioting?
Well, I'm gonna take it back, man. The same way I took it on my show last night. Initially, I was like, you know what? Don't burn down your own neighborhood. Take it downtown. Flame downtown up, because we gotta go. We gotta have places to work and get our grocery from. And that's my initial thought. Okay, a few days went by. I'm just thinking, I'm just salivating in it, and like I said, I'm just incubating in it, and I see Dr. King's quote about riot is the language of the unheard. So I was like, yo, boy, we just haven't been heard for 300-400 years. Just don't hear us, no matter how we plead, how we begged, how we chanted, how we held hands, how we marched. They just refuse to hear us. So then I'm thinking, so now I'm boiling. Now I'm boiling, and I begin to hear this speech. I can't remember the young lady's name. I can't remember her name. But as I turn to it, she's yelling, I don't give a damn. They can burn Target to the damn ground. America's the violent one. We learned rioting and looting from them. Mm-hmm. They murdered and slaughtered us. America's the violent one. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. That's where I am. Hey, it's above me. It's above me. You're right. It's in God's hands. Whatever happens, happens. That's where I am with it.
Al, what say you? How you feeling about the looting and rioting itself, and the perception that it's all, for one, that it's all black folks, and two, that it's all people that are protesters turned wild?
So I think I'm with you. You have to be really naive and not paying attention to our past if you are not willing to accept, acknowledge that there are agitators, provocateurs, anarchists, government people. Because I done heard several times and I haven't seen it, but I've heard several times that there is evidence of law enforcement officials putting bricks in these neighborhoods as a way to give them resources to destroy property.
I've seen videos.
Them, right?
I've seen video. I'll send you one. Yeah,
please. Yeah. I've heard that quite a few times. Yeah. And shame on them, right? And shame on the agitators, shame on the provocateurs. So I think you'd have to be really naive to not acknowledge that that's happening. I think, let's see, how do I feel? I think it's definitely expressing how hurt and angry people are. I think I totally agree with that quote from Martin Luther King that, violence is the language of people who feel they're unheard. Like, I get that. It's when you, I was talking with one of my uncles, and he's like, yo, you know how long this has been going on? You know how long this been going on? This been going on since the Boston Tea Party.
Right.
Like, take it there, Al, as a way to express your dissatisfaction to your rulers, right? So it's been going on for a minute, and you gotta see that. But I also am feeling like, my grandmother taught that on my mother's side. My grandmother, actually my great grandmother, taught an aunt of mine this lesson, and she passed it on to me one day when I was talking to her, and I'm complaining and venting about family members, and she's like, you know what, my grandmother, your great grandmother taught me is when it comes to people who are behaving like that, take no shit from them, but don't be like them. Don't be like them. Like, know who you are, know what you're trying to accomplish, and just because somebody is treating you a certain kind of way, don't take it and point them out and hold them accountable, and ain't nothing wrong with that. But you ain't got to be like them. And then you think of, like, Michelle Obama, I love that woman, and her comment of, when they go low, we go high, right? So I believe that. Like, I don't believe just because someone does something to you, you have to respond in that way.
Right.
What should guide your response, as far as I'm concerned, is your morals. And also, do you think it's going to be effective? Because, I might do something against my morals if I think it's going to be effective. And from my experience, rioting and looting is the least effective approach to get change in this country. And with that guiding me, I'm looking at them wishing they would do something else, because I don't think this is the most effective approach. And when I look at my experience, when protests are large, that seems to work. We got that. When they're like broadly representative and diverse, and you got people from all different types of cultures and genders and all of that seems to work. We got that. I love that when I see that on the films or when I'm watching in the clips. I love that everybody's out there represented.
Right.
That is what I want to see. But I also know that them being sustained makes a difference. We got that. I mean, hopefully the energy continues for months, but the fact that they still doing it is spreading is impressive. But the other factor that I think makes them most effective is when they're nonviolent. Because what that allows is two things. One, it often, because of all these other factors, especially the sustained part, the powerful, oppressive folk becomes violent or does something that gets people to be like, that's what I'm fucking talking about right there. This type, and we've seen it already. We've seen it in Atlanta, where they tased 2 college students on some bullshit.
Right.
Pulled them out the car. These people just riding around, not even part of the protesting, and they get tased and it gets caught on camera again. Like, this is exactly what we're talking about. But what it also does when it's nonviolent is that does not allow the negative bullshit that we hear over the last week, that distracts energy conversation about what the real topic is. And like I was explaining to my son, what movements are doing ultimately is recruiting. They're trying to get, especially when you're a minority, you got to build coalitions. You got to bring people onto your side because we're the minority. And that's what this should be doing, trying to get more people to come on our side. Mm-hmm. So I say, when you're recruiting somebody, you're not trying to give, when you know you have opposition, you're not trying to give them negative information for them to negatively recruit against you. That's not what you're trying to do. If I'm trying to get somebody on my side, I don't want to give my opposition something for them to be like, yo, did you hear this about Al? This is why you don't want to fuck with him. Yeah, I know his cause is cool, but listen to what I got to tell you about him. Because every second that's happening, I'm not able to recruit that person. So I think that's what makes this, to me, not the most effective approach. So that's what I'm feeling, is that I really wish they would be doing something different as opposed to the rioting and looting. Mm-hmm. And I can think of a whole lot of other things that could be done that would raise awareness and keep you out there, that you don't have to burn somebody's shit. That's how I feel.
Okay. Yeah, I'm torn. Because on the surface, it's easy for me to say, damn, I wish they wouldn't be burning shit down. I wish they could they could remain on focus and just focus on the mission at hand. And it sounds good to say that. But I know myself, in situations of far less importance, have gotten to a point where I just said, fuck it, I'm going to do what I need to do. And I don't care what that is. I'm going to do what the fuck I need to do to prove my point. And that was over things that were far less important than this shit. So I understand. And I also know that it's not just about this situation. It's not just about George Floyd. This is things that have been going on and building and being buried and dug up and buried and dug up again for 400 years. So I get that. And I also know that it has been proven that pain and suffering and violence and dominance, all those things from both sides, is passed down through your DNA. So I know we always say racism is a learned behavior, and to a degree it is. And we also say that, suffering and pain it happens only in your lifetime, and to a degree that's true. But some of that stuff is passed down through DNA, and it becomes part of who you are and part of your culture. So you are born into it. So it's not just about the last 7 days. This is about 400 years of shit being passed down from everybody in this situation. And so I get that in the right state, I can say, I really wish we could do this or do this or do this. But I also know that there are states of mind that we all are capable of getting to when you just say fuck it and you go in. And me and Pooh talked about this again earlier this week, and it reminds me of this quote from Tupac, where he's basically saying, when I come to you so many times and I say, please stop killing me. And if I come to, as an analogy, if I come through your hotel room and I hear you partying and I knock on your door, and when you open the door, I see people throwing food, throwing meat and sandwiches and drinks all over the place. And I say, hey, I see you guys are having a party. Don't want to interrupt you too long, but I'm starving. Can I please have something to eat? And you look at me in the face and say, we ain't got nothing to eat. You slam the door in my face. And I'm just like, wow. So I step back, take a few minutes, knock on the door again. And I say, look, I'm sorry, but I'm starving. I'm literally about to die. Do you mind if I have a sandwich? And you look at me and you laugh and say, I told you, we don't have nothing to eat. And then I come back again. And you say, yeah, okay. I'll give you a sandwich. Hold on right here. And you never come back to the door. By that time, I'm not knocking anymore. I'm kicking in the door with a gun. Like, look, motherfucker, I'm kicking in the door, blazing I got lyrics and everything, and I'm taking what I want. That's kind of the situation we're in at this point, because you didn't listen, you lied to me. And so while I don't agree, like, I'm in that sense, I agree that I'm not going to be the one out there rioting and looting, and it's just not in my nature. But I understand. I definitely understand. As people, we all want the same things. Regardless of who we are, we want, an opportunity to provide for our families. We want our kids to have a better opportunity than we did. We want to be able to enjoy our lives without fear that that somebody's hate is going to be impressed upon us. And we don't have that. We don't. And it doesn't mean it happens to everybody. Doesn't mean it happens every time. But the possibility that I can go out on a regular random ass Tuesday and some cop or somebody who thinks there's a cop could just kill me just because they don't like the color of my skin. It's a possibility. 400 years after we said this shit ain't right. Now, that's crazy to me. So I definitely understand why somebody would be that pissed off where everything that's rational goes out the window. So that's where I stand with it.
I think I'm with you. I'm just going I'm layering that with what I would tell my players. Like, I understand why you are choosing what you're choosing. I get it. I swear I get it, because I've been there, and I still am here. But what I want y'all to understand is that with choices come consequences, or results, or whatever, rewards, consequences. And from my experience, the strategy that you're taking does not bring the best results. So I can't make you, and I understand why you're doing it, and I can't make you do anything different. But I'm here because I want to win, and I want to make progress. And so it frustrates me for me to just watch you do what I would call crazy, the definition of insanity, which is doing something that's been done before and expect a different result.
But it's worked in the past.
Let me finish, and I'll wrap it up. And from my experience,
take your time.
There are other approaches that have got better results. So why aren't we choosing those tactics?
Got you. Okay. To that, I'll say this. One, those tactics that you're talking about, all completely peaceful tactics, there have been times that they didn't work. Countless times that they didn't work. So other things had to be tried. Secondly, in particular, the Civil Rights Act itself wasn't passed and wasn't signed. It was it was being passed back and forth. Nothing ever after 4 years. It wasn't signed until there was 8 days straight of rioting across this country. And finally it was signed. And I don't think that's a coincidence. So
I don't think it's a coincidence. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying that it's the only reason that it was signed, but it's definitely part of the reason that it was pressed through faster than it had been moving. Because especially when you're talking to people that they don't have the benefit of having people that taught them those lessons that we've been taught, or having the life experience to know that this may end badly, but I'm going to do it anyway. They don't have the forward thinking. They don't have the experience to know that, especially living in a society where a lot of them Their fathers are in prison. Their aunts, their uncles, their cousins, their brothers have been murdered by the people they're trying to tell stop killing us. And then those people look at us and say, you don't have a father. Motherfucker, you killed my father. Y'all don't have, so to grow up in a cycle of generation after generation after generation of that is why I can't fault them. I'm not going to preach to anyone who is living an experience that I have never lived through. My father wasn't killed by the cops. My uncles weren't killed by the cops. I don't have cousins who was shot down. I don't have uncles or cousins who were doing 30 years in prison for some shit they didn't do because drugs were planted on them or because they live in over-policed communities. I don't live through that. So I can't preach at somebody and tell them how to react for something I haven't lived through. And that's all I'm saying. It's like I wish they would do it differently, but hell, who am I to tell them?
So I have experienced police, and so this is a separate topic, but I want to get this thought out.
Yeah. Now I've experienced police brutality, but on a singular basis. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to make this comment because I think this shit is profound, and I want to get this shit on the record. I think we need to continue to redefine police brutality so that it is not just seen just as the murders or the mistreatment, that it goes all the way down to where cops treat people differently based on their race, color, blah, 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 blah. Like, all that is police brutality, right? So we got to expand how we see cops mistreating folk in their power.
Right.
And so that's a comment. But so I think being someone who's experienced that, being someone who personally has protested in his past and worked against that, being someone who has spent, at least the last 32 years of my life trying to make this world a better place when it comes to race and the conditions of black folk. I feel like it is in my responsibility, just like a coach, to share my life experience and say, yo, bruh, like, I understand what you might have been taught before you came to me. I respect that. I get it. And I also understand that sharing the ball and playing hard defense, you might not win every game. I get it. So you're going to point examples and be like, yo, coach, see, they shared the ball, they played defense, and they didn't win. You're right. It don't work all the time. But from my experience of playing and coaching and watching basketball, these tactics are more successful than what you are bringing to the table. So I'm trying to convince you, even though I understand why and ain't going to continue to bash you, but I really feel like it's in my responsibility to voice and let you know that that's not the best way to do it. And while I can have empathy and get it, I would, in my seat, be irresponsible of me not to also say that ain't gonna win. This strategy, in my opinion, is better, and here's why. And when I look at other movements that have, like, at one point in my life, the world saw it one way, and now they see it differently, which is not the case when it comes to police brutality. For the most part, the country has stayed the same all my damn life.
Shit has never changed, right?
Correct. But that ain't the same thing when it comes to domestic violence. That has changed in my lifetime.
Right.
I grew up as a young child. I can remember when TV promoted the narrative that it was okay to beat your wife.
Right.
I've seen family members hit their wives as a child, but grew up thinking differently. Drunk driving is another one. When I was young, motherfuckers drove drunk all the time.
Right.
To the point that some of my elders felt the harsh because they couldn't get out of the habit. because as society was changing, they were slow to change. And fuck me too. I was slow to change in my early 20s because that's what I grew up on. Like, nah, motherfucker, we drive drunk. That's what we do. Nah, you don't. And society, that movement has changed how we see it. Me Too is another one. And that shit was rapid as hell.
Right.
We no longer see sexual harassment the way we did when I was a teenager. There's a reason. And some of it is the color of our skin. I get that. It's always been harder for black people.
Most of it is the color.
Right? I get that. But it's also tactics, though. Because we have shown progress on some issues as people of color in this country. There has been some things that have progressed for us. And all I'm saying is, in this game with these rules, as long as we are playing by these rules, one tactic to me is not that effective.
And I agree with everything you said. I gotta tell y'all that. I agree with everything you said. But one, as impressive and as like tried and true that running a system and playing defense and sharing the ball works. When the game was on the line, Phil Jackson said, "Give the ball to Mike and get the fuck out the way." So when the shit hits the fan, you're gonna go with what you know works, right? And as the majority, yeah, they're gonna let us do whatever we, hey, protest, riot, do what you want to do. But when it comes down to it, they make the laws, and they know how to shut shit down and win the game. So while we're running plays and sharing the ball, they call him Mike. Mike, come in this shit. All right? And so I get it. Like, ideally, yes, I want to say, yes, let's stick to our guns and go out and fall on our sword and have a moral victory if we have to. At the end of the day, moral victories get us in this same situation we're in right now. And to not beat this point to death, last thing I'll say, is yes, ideally, yes, I would want it to be that way. And if I had control of this situation, yes, it would remain completely nonviolent and everybody would, join, lock arms and continue with the movement. But a lot of times, stuff just doesn't stay on script. And, when you get off script, regardless of what side you sit on this, I think all the other movements that you name, Me Too, there's, domestic violence, drunk, any of that. I think all of those being able to shift in a far less span of time shows you how ingrained like white supremacy and racism and systemic racism is in this country. It's the fabric of this country since the beginning of it. So and I think the fact that we've been fighting the same fight for this long shows how unwilling a majority of this country is to even let that shift at all. And the potential power shift, whether that's financially or whether that's voting right, whatever that is, that could come with true equal rights in this country is fearful for a majority of this country. And I don't think the same kind of fear lies in, making people drive sober or, making sure women are getting sexually harassed. Like, I don't think the kind of fear lies in shifting those movements. So I get that they were able to be accomplished, but there's far much more to be lost by a lot of more people in this country if they allow this movement to gain that kind of traction. So,
you have helped me take my theory even further, right? Because I think you are on to something with white supremacy, right? So I think what I will affirm is that not all white people come from a white supremacist place where they want to hold black people down, right? There's a good percentage of them that are, and I think that does represent part of the problem. Yeah. I think another way white supremacy kind of manifests itself is this idea that black folk ain't valued the same as white folk. Right. And I think a whole lot of more white folk think that. So that gets me back to what I believe, something you just said in terms of the tactics got us to where we are right now. And I think it's not just the tactics that got us to where we are right now. I think we haven't done enough to really hold the mirror up to some of the white folk that I talk about who just don't understand that we're all equal. White ain't better than black. Right. We ain't holding the mirror up to them to say, is this really who you want to be in life? Because when I think about the drunk driving and the Me Too and the domestic violence, right, to the point of there's two types of white supremacists, I wasn't the type of drunk driver who were just hell bent on, I want to drive without my I want to kill somebody tonight. Right. Or
just turn the lights off and take my hands off the steering wheel. Yeah.
Right. I feel like that's where I'm doing this. No. Right. I did it because that's what I knew. That's what I was taught. I hadn't really appreciated the value of why this shit is totally stupid and unsafe. I hadn't been held the mirror up to me. And I think that also is part of what we need to be doing is by one way to get them on our side is to also help them by holding the mirror up to say, do you really want to be on that side of the street?
Yeah.
This is how I see you. And let's figure out how you do the work and you change your beliefs. And if you really thought black lives mattered the same as white, 490 cases wouldn't have played out like that. Because they would have said, we tripping. We do not want to be part of a country that allows 490 instances of cops killing any of our citizens and not be held accountable.
Right. Yeah.
That too is where we need to move.
Yeah, I agree. And to acknowledge the ones who do decide to be on the right side of history. You know, because I've know a few. And again, and even to that point, and we talked about this too, is it's easy. I can't be mad at a lot of people for being comfortable with what they have. So being comfortable with being silent, because to them, being silent means that, hey, I'm not racist. So if I don't say anything, I'm on the right side.
Right.
And so to see, like y'all mentioned earlier, to see the different faces and the different races and everyone come together in these peaceful protests is powerful. Because I don't think it's black folks' responsibility to teach white people how to not be racist. So, and for far too long, we've been trying to, and it's a willful, like, deafness that comes upon folks when it's time for them to stick their own neck out for stuff that really don't affect them. So I applaud, all my friends, my white friends who are willing to stick their neck out for something that really, if they remain silent, they could go on living their life like nothing would change. But Pooh, how do you get that to that conversation? Like, what conversations, and what should white folks be telling their kids, and to have those difficult conversations to change that cycle We talked about cycles in black communities, and a lot of minority communities and a lot of inner city communities where things are passed down, where communities are over policed and the things that come with that. What would you suggest white folks tell their kids, even at a young age, the uncomfortable conversations that we have to have with our kids? What do you suggest they tell their kids?
Well, I guess initially starting off is contingent upon the type of person they are. You know, if they view it as what it really is, and that we've been, oppressed and the values and we're not valued the same. It's not equal. It's definitely injustice. And then they ought to, I guess, because
It's gonna be interesting.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right. Because I guess growing up, like when I started playing with my, white friends or whatnot, it was almost not like color. We were friends, and my mom was like, well, he's just like you. And it was, Steve. I was playing with Steve. I friend Steve
Yeah.
Lundy. And my mom was like, they're people just like us. There's no, you may be able to run fast. He can run fast too. You can jump high. He can jump high too. He's a human being just like us. So you don't have to be afraid to go over there. You don't have to be afraid to talk to him, play with him, or anything of that nature. You're not inferior to him. He's not inferior to you. You guys are, quote unquote, the same. So that's how my mom, quote unquote, talked to me about playing with our next door neighbor, and that lasted a lifelong friendship. I went over his house every day, played go-karts, whatever, and I didn't. And after a while, I didn't see him as, white guy. It was just Steve, my friend. So I guess that's how you have to break it down to them, because they're raising their kids with this that they almost dwarf us in all aspects of the game. Instead of teaching them that, hey, you know what, you guys are equal. Nah, you're better than him. You're better than them. So that and it starts there. It bursts that seed, and they take that to middle school. They take that to high school. They take that to college, and then they give it off to their offsprings. So that's where it has to stop. They have to stop planting that seed that they're superior to us.
Right. And what about the ones who don't plant the seed either way? They just don't have the conversation at all.
Then they allow other people in society to plant that seed for them.
Right.
And so I'd rather start that conversation first. I'd rather, I guess, uncloak my child's eyes, before I let the streets do it, as they say, because you don't have any control over the streets. You don't know how much the streets will show them and how fast. And you don't want someone else delivering a message that you should deliver yourself, because you may not, want that message delivered. And I assure you won't. That you don't want that message, right?
Yeah, and I always say, like that's part of the privilege. That's part of white privilege. Is not, you don't have to have that conversation. Like, we have to have that conversation with our kids at some point. They don't have to. It will benefit them to do it, but if they don't, it's not going to get their child killed, possibly. So I always say, like, that's part of the privilege. Is, shit, you don't have to. But, and even, I know we've all seen a lot of this on social media over the last week is, other black folks telling other black folks how to feel about this shit. Pooh, how much does that shit overcook your grits?
Man. Bro. As you said that I unmuted myself and threw my piece of pizza down. But
do that. It must not be a good piece of pizza that you ain't throwing. I ain't throwing
right. You know how I feel about
ground.
pizza.
Crazy. hey, you throwing that pizza on the ground. Get your ass whooped.
It's right. It's just like you don't know the frustration. You don't know the emotions. You don't know where that person feels lies. And different instances, they strike different people differently. No one has the same chemical makeup. So whatever happens, if someone comes in your house and slaps your mother's face, one group may grab this guy, hold this guy down, and call the cops. This guy came in here and slapped my mother's face. Okay, but you bless you. You may do this at another home, bless you, and you will not make it out there alive. Mm-hmm. You just will not make it out there alive because different people handle situations differently, and you don't know the level of, like I say, you don't know the level of frustration that they're at. So you can't.
Depending on what they've been through with their mama, somebody might tell you to slap her again.
Slap her, right? Right. It's just you just don't know what that person is. Emotionally, physically, mentally. So if you do something to someone, there is no how to respond. You just can't do it. Oh man, you're not supposed to be that mad. Right. You weren't supposed to get that butcher knife and do that to that kid. What? So you telling me how angry I could be?
Right.
You can't tell someone how angry they should be. The only thing you can do is you can expect the response. Mm-hmm. What that response is, you don't know.
Right.
You don't know.
Right. And Al, me and you just finished on starting off on a completely different end of the spectrum. And I think I can speak for you, but I wasn't trying to change your mind and tell you how to think.
Oh, no.
Right. So, when you do see that and you see other black folks telling each other how they should respond or how they should be feeling, what do you get from that?
I get from that I'm glad I've evolved. Because I've been out of there telling people how to feel business. And I think one of the blessings of living with a very sensitive life partner, my wife, is that I've done that work years, decades ago, and I get it because we all feel things differently. And some people are I'm telling you, I got to tell you what's better business. I got that, I can be that person, just not when it comes to feelings.
Right. Feelings
are not one of those things that I'm going to say, yo, you need to do it this way, because that's not even feasible.
Right.
We all are different, and we react and perceive and receive things differently. And I think that is hella okay. And I advocate for channeling emotion, but not the suppression of it.
Right.
No, I think emotion is a great thing. I just think it needs to be channeled.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and Al, you got grown kids. So what are your kids like from that age group? What are your kids expressing at this point?
Dude, we've been having the most heated of conversations. Wow. And just good conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in so many ways, where my son is exactly where I was in his age. Right. Mm. So, and talking to him brought back a memory of, especially as Atlanta started to pick up in terms of the protest, brought the memory back to me of Rodney King. So I shared with him. I was like, from my memory, Rodney King, what was so significant about Rodney King was we knew police brutality was happening way before Rodney King, right? We have hip hop songs dedicated to police brutality in the 80s. It was a big thing in the hip hop community. I get it, but what made I'm familiar with it. What made Rodney King so special, that event, is that that's when it was caught on tape.
Right.
So for all of the conversation that had gone on before that, where people was like, yeah, I hear you, but I ain't seen it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Here the video is, bam. And we like, see, told you. And for him then not to get convicted, it is exactly the emotions that we're experiencing now. Here we go again. I can't believe, based on what we're seeing, how did you not see it the same way we saw it? To when the riots happened in LA, when they started, protesting and rioting and looting and everything in LA, Atlanta picked up with some protests. Not to the same extent in terms of the rioting and looting. That didn't really happen like that in Atlanta, if I remember then. But what I was sharing with my son is that when the verdict happens and the news that they're protesting in Atlanta makes it up to New York City, my mother calls me. My mother calls me and is like, yo, so how you doing? I'm doing good, Ma. Getting my stuff ready, packing my stuff. I'm heading downtown. No, you're not. Stay home. Stay home. Insisted, begged, convinced me to not go down there because she knew her son. And so that's what I mean. Like, I can relate to where he's at. So some of those conversations, he is like very there when he looks at the protesting, the rioting, the looting, all of it. He's like, yeah, yeah, do that shit. And I'm trying to offer another perspective in a lot of our conversations. So it's been great just to be able to, on a daily basis, have that depth of a conversation about race, about change, about commitment, and it's been great. It really has.
Nice. Oh man, Pooh, I know. Well, like you kind of got a split level with your kids. So your oldest son, have you have any conversation around this with him?
Yeah, we've been talking. We've been definitely chatting about it. I've been talking to all of them, because I guess in the midst of a conversation with my 12-year-old, my 7-year-old, she's standing over looking.
Right.
Oh, so what happened? So wait a minute. And then my youngest son, he was listening. So he was like, so wait a minute. The cops weren't helping. They were murdering people. So that's him. And I was like, some of them, all of them are not who they appear to be. So, we have that, I've been having a conversation, man. We've been doing well with it though. Those guys, they're thinkers, so it's very easy to speak with them about it.
Cool. Yeah. And everybody out there, definitely tomorrow on our other show with our wives, we will be discussing how to talk to your kids about police interactions and race. So there will be another level of this conversation. We'll have our wives involved. So definitely check out One Eye Shut this week. But yeah, I've been having these conversations with my kids too. My boys are 13 and 10. My youngest will be 11 in July. So he's almost I call them tweens. So it's funny, like my oldest, I always have to talk when it comes to like stuff like this, like societal issues. I always have to like talk him back off the ledge because he's like you say, he's getting to that age where he thinks he's invincible, and he thinks and rightfully so. I'd rather have him think he can change the world than to have him think he can't do anything about it. So he thinks he can change the world by himself, and that's a great thing. Sometimes I have to give him some kind of perspective, especially. Remind him sometimes that you're a kid who has 2 TVs and 2 PS4s in your room. You're not that kid. You know what I'm saying? You're not that guy yet. You may never be. So even you have some sort of privileged perspective because you don't go through what a lot of kids go through. So don't go thinking that you're invincible when you haven't experienced a lot of things that people experienced yet. So kind of giving them perspective. We always keep an ongoing conversation about, current events, and they talk about it. They ask what we talked about on the show all the time, and we talk about societal issues. So whether that's police brutality or racism or sports or whatever it is. So we always keep ongoing conversations. But it's good. So everybody out there, please don't shield your kids from the world, especially stuff like this, because as Pooh said earlier, this could be groundbreaking, and this could be a shift in society as we know it. So definitely keep your kids. If you think you need to adjust that conversation based on age, do that. But please open up the conversation, keep the dialogue going. I don't know. So as I just mentioned, we will continue a different level of this conversation with our wives tomorrow. Pooh, do you what are the conversations like with your wife? Without going too far, because we'll talk about it tomorrow. But what are the conversations like with your wife surrounding this, everything that's going on there?
Well, I guess it's hard to pinpoint one particular thing because she's always like, time to talk to Carter, talk to him about this, talk to him about that. So I always try to use teachable moments, around Carter and get those examples out to him and say, hey, see, this is why XYZ, you always got to be cognitive of what's going on. You see the little boy drowned, he was all at his friend's home, and it was, 5 Caucasian kids and just him, and his mom said he's an avid swimmer. He swims all the time. Don't see how he drowned with those kids, and the Caucasian kids saying they don't know what happened to him. So, and I pulled him down, spoke to him about that, and just told him your friends may not be your friends. You gotta have an owl neck, so to speak. You got to see the right. But we just talk, man. We talk about, I guess, what's going on here in Colombia. How do you think the law enforcement is going to react now? And you think they're going to be more, passive, more aggressive? Right now, I guess we pretty much stand out of the way, because if the COVID wouldn't have been out there, I would have been standing on the state grounds just to be out there, but I didn't want to. But all I'm hearing is, boy, the pandemic is racism.
Right.
That is the pandemic. I read that today from George Clooney. Yeah. George Clooney was like, yeah, COVID is out there, but boy, we've been experiencing this pandemic for more than I've been alive.
Right.
So, and I definitely respected that. But like I say, the conversations we have are at all different aspects, all different angles. Just people that you work with that you don't, you didn't know was like that. And like you said, you put things out there, you put a post out there, and people attack your post. And I just, if you say, oh, Black Lives Matter, why is someone attacking your post? Mm-hmm. And you see everything is, your emotional things are at a boil, and you have people that you see with and work and smile in your face every day, and they attack you. So it's just a lot of different. Like I said, we speak in a lot of different aspects, a lot of different angles, and we'll go into it deeper tomorrow.
Right, and that's the beauty of this thing of us having our own platform. Is y'all go on social media, act stupid, come on my post, because we're gonna talk about you on here.
Oh yeah,
that's the beauty of us having our own platform. Al,
yes, sir.
You and your wife had any interesting conversations. I'm sure we'll hear about it tomorrow. But anything stand out to you?
I mean, honestly, where for us, it's just and I'll be curious to hear what she says. I mean, we definitely been talking as it's evolved, but I think with her, it's just this sadness, just this. Like, not only is it, I think she feels sad for the family of Floyd, but I think when you can't help as a parent when you see something like that, especially a black person of color, not acknowledge at some point in your mind and your spirit that could be your child.
All right.
And in our family, my wife is definitely the more, again, like I said earlier, the feeler of it. So while it crossed my mind, when it crosses her mind and spirit, it brings her down. Like, she feels it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I've just kind of witnessed over the last week. Just, again, I've seen it in other cases, but it just, as a, you talk about the privilege, about being white in this country. One of the privileges, you don't watch those videos and emotionally connect in thinking that could be your child.
Right.
Not even like could be you. That could be your child out there. Because we've seen, part of what has been heartbreaking, distressing to watch is because I've been watching a lot of live feeds and stuff like that where it might not make the news, but just watching it happening from a camera's perspective live.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's some children out there getting tear gassed.
Right.
Like, so, but, I don't know how anybody can watch a 15-year-old get tear gassed and see him crying and gasping, and like the idea that a teenager is experiencing being tear gassed is like, wow, that's heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah.
So, it's just been, it's been an emotional week.
Right. Yeah. And of course, y'all know, and everybody that's listening to One Eye Shut knows how much of a firecracker my wife is. And she's also a feeler. She's an empath. So a lot of things for me that I can kind of look at and move on, it sticks with her throughout the day. And we have conversations. It's, sometimes she has to pull away from social media because she's, or she turns on the news, like she's like you said, she starts to feel it. And she's especially, for her to, there's always this like conundrum that she has to deal with, with her being Puerto Rican and have to like sometimes decipher, decipher some black code sometimes, especially Southern black code, because she's from New York. And like, I remember when a couple years ago, like she finally got it. When the boys were younger, I would tell them, I get it that they're mixed, but they are black men. She never really understood it. Like when they were babies, I was like, I get it that they are black and Puerto Rican, but they are black men. And she finally gets it when stuff like when these things started to happen. She finally get it because that's how the world sees them. Pretty interesting conversations we always have. But again, whatever that is, just keep the dialogue open. Last thing I want to talk about, and I'm sure this will be pretty short, because I'm sure we all feel the same way about y'all's president. How fucking ridiculous is it that, for one, you go for a crowd that was completely peaceful, and this is why I say, I get it when people freak out sometimes, but a completely peaceful protest crowd, you send the National Guard and they send tear gas and flash bombs and rubber bullets through this crowd to push people out in D.C. so he can come out the next day and do a photo op with a Bible in front of a church that he's never been to. Al, how ridiculous is this dude, man?
As ridiculous as he's been since before he was president. Again, his behavior is consistent. This is nothing out of character. From the comment when the looting starts, the shooting starts, I knew, here he go. But again, it's just, I guess I'm not surprised at all by the inappropriate and just his behavior, his comments doesn't surprise me at all. It's consistent.
Mm-hmm. Pooh, what are your thoughts on the latest moves of 45? Pooh, can't hear you.
No?
Yes.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, I don't know what's going on with that. Man, I don't have a lot to say. He's just a complete embarrassment, man. I'm speechless, man. The guy's a complete moron. When you have everyone knows it, all the outlets. Even what's crazy is I was reading an article that the statement that George Bush wrote, and he began to dig into him and dude, some type of way the article vanished, like as I was reading it.
Wow.
Wow.
So I didn't even get to see him dig into it. And guess what the article went to?
What?
A Trump article.
Wow.
Like praising him, such and such, giving him $200K.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just out of thin air. And I continue to go back, search back, go back, and it never would come up. The heading would come up, but as I clicked on it, it always went back to the Trump article, which is crazy. Yeah. But the dude's we know what he is, man. He's that. Of course, we had the suspicions, but he's that. He's what we thought he was.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the words of the great Denny Green.
Right. Shout out to you, Denny Green.
No doubt.
Oh man. All right. Well, y'all ready for some trivia?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this week's trivia, I have in front of me a list of the 100 best HBCU football players of all time. All right. A list compiled by HBCUBuzz.com.
Okay.
And it is recent. The list was made the end of 2019. So it is a recent list. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start at number 1. And I will describe the player, and you give me his name. So, of course, it'll be increasingly difficult as we go along. So anytime we have lists, same thing. First one that misses one, you don't lose with the miss. You lose if your opponent gets to the next one right.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So who's going first?
Al won the last one.
Al
I'm back in my funk. Yeah.
All right. The list is restarted. Back with the Nick streak. So, Al, you ready?
Yes.
All right. First on the list is a wide receiver from Mississippi Valley State from years who is a college football Hall of Famer as well as a pro football Hall of Famer. Played his career with the 49ers, the Raiders, and the Seahawks. Who is he?
That would be the greatest wide receiver of all time, Jerry Rice.
Absolutely. Jerry the Goat Rice. All right, Pooh. Second on the list.
I know who this is. Go ahead. So I know who you about to say.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a running back from Jackson State.
Jackson State, right?
Played his entire career with the Chicago Bears.
Chicago Bears.
He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer and a Super Bowl champion. Who is he?
Walter the Sweetness Payton.
Absolutely. All right. Al, third on the list. He is a defensive end from South Carolina State and Mississippi Valley State. Played in the NFL from 61 to 74 with the Los Angeles Rams. He's a 5-time All-Pro. Would likely be the all-time sack leader if they kept sack as an official record during his career.
Without a doubt. Not the preacher, but Deacon Jones.
Deacon Jones is correct.
Okay.
Number 4 on the list. All right. He's a linebacker from Morgan State. Played in the NFL from 67 to 77 with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Famer. He had 27 interceptions and 18 fumble recoveries in his career. Who is he?
Don't know. Wilkins. That's his last name, right?
That is incorrect. You holding on too tight to his Neek Street, calling him Wilkins. That would be Willie Lanier.
Willie Lanier. Willie.
All right. Al, for the victory. This defensive tackle from Grambling played in the NFL from 1963 to 1975, also with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Famer. He played in 182 games, including 166 games in a row. Who is he?
Wow.
Buck Buchanan.
Buck Buchanan is correct. Al, for the win. Short business with you, Pooh.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Buck Buchanan.
Buck Buchanan. Imagine having Willie Lanier and Buck Buchanan on the same defense.
Hell yeah.
Let's go ahead and round off the top 10 for me.
Yeah, I was on some names to round off. You want me to give you the hints, or you want me to just names?
Yeah, I'll take a hint or two. You know.
The next one is a 6'4" cornerback from Southern. Played in the NFL from 1970 to 1983 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. As a 4-time NFL Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Famer, and had 57 interceptions in his career.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know who that is?
I don't know. No, who's that? Who's that, Al?
Al,
Mel Blunt. Mel Blunt.
Mel Blunt is correct.
I thought Mel Blunt played for the Raiders.
No.
Dude, don't try to take him from us.
47. Number 47
right.
for the Steelers.
Yeah.
I thought Mel Blunt played for the Raiders.
Yeah, he's the reason for the Mel Blunt rule, where you can't touch the receivers past 5 yards.
Right. And that's why I didn't say Mel Blunt. Yeah. I thought he played for the Raiders.
No. Wow. Number 7. He's a fullback from South Carolina State who transferred to Nevada for his senior year. But he played in the NFL from 1946 to 1955 with the Browns, and then his final season with the Steelers. He's a Hall of Famer who averaged 5.6 yards per rush. He played both ways, so he also played linebacker with the Browns. Who is he?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
I was about to say, no way you know that.
He also played in Chuck Taylor's. Marion Motley.
Marion Motley.
Yeah, that name don't even sound familiar though.
Really? Yeah, okay. Man was a fullback wearing number 76 in Chuck Taylor's. That's crazy. Next one, number 8, is a defensive end from Grambling. He played in the NFL from 1958 to 1969 with the Browns and the Packers. He's a 5-time NFL champion, a 2-time Super Bowl champion. And he played 10 seasons with the Packers with 22 fumble recoveries in his career. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I don't know that one either.
I don't know.
That would be Willie Davis.
Willie Davis. Yeah. And he went to Grambling.
The next one, number 9, is the guy who I think you're thinking about, Pooh. a cornerback from Grambling. Played in the NFL from 63 to 78 with the Browns and the Raiders. He's in the Hall of Famer. Had 54 career interceptions. I think this might be who you thought about, Mel Blount.
Mel Blount.
Y'all know that one?
Including a classic one in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Against the Vikings.
Yeah.
That
Who
was
was
Willie
that?
Brown.
Willie Brown.
Brown.
Yeah. Willie Brown. It is.
Raiders.
What was he? 24.
Yes.
I think he was 24. Yep.
Yes,
Yeah. That's who I was thinking about.
And number 10 from Prairie View A&M, a safety. Played in the NFL from 67 to 1980 with the Houston Oilers and the Washington Redskins. He's a Hall of Famer who returned 9 interceptions for TDs in his career and 49 career picks as a safety.
I know who it is. I didn't know he went to a HBCU. I know who it is. That's Ken Houston.
Ken Houston, right. Yep.
One of the best safeties ever.
Yeah, Ken Houston was a man.
Them HBCUs been putting them out.
Yeah, and that ain't even like, I'll just read off the names till we start getting the names we don't know. But 11 was Art Shell, who played at Maryland State, which is now Maryland Eastern Shore. Lem Barney played at Jackson State.
Oh, yeah.
Rosie Brown played at Morgan State. Larry Little played at Bethune-Cookman. Leroy Kelly, Morgan State. Richard Dent, Tennessee State.
Leroy Kelly was a back? What's Leroy Kelly? What did he play?
Leroy Kelly was a running back, yeah.
For the Browns,
For
right?
the Browns, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Richard Dent, Tennessee State. Jackie Slater, Jackson State. Emmett Thomas, Bishop. Harry Carson, South Carolina State. Robert Brazil, Jackson State. Lynn Ford, Morgan State. Rayfield Wright, Fort Valley State. Michael Strahan, Texas Southern. Shannon Sharp, Savannah State. John Stallworth, Alabama A&M. Aeneas Williams, Southern. Bob
Didn't know that.
Hayes, Florida A&M.
I didn't know that either.
Claude Humphrey, Tennessee State. Elvin Bethea, North Carolina A&T. Donnie Shell, South Carolina State.
Yeah.
Charlie Joyner, Grambling. L.C. Greenwood, Arkansas Pine Bluff. Lamar Parrish, Lincoln. Ed Too-Tall Jones, Tennessee State. Ben Coates, Livingstone. Ken Riley, Florida A&M. Everson Walls, Grambling. Steve McNair, Alcorn State.
Right.
Let me see if there's any more.
Forshey didn't make it. He went to state too, didn't he?
Yep, Robert Porsche, South Carolina State.
Yeah.
So, that's just where I'm at now, and that's at 41. So
41.
Yeah, and that ain't even talking about the Darius Leonards and like current, like more recent players.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot about Darius Leonard.
So,
He got a chance to be a real
legend.
something special.
Right.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Well,
He's a baller.
right. Well, cool, man. This was a good show. Al, you won. Man, that was quick. We spent more time recapping than we did the actual game. But yeah,
You're right.
Al, you won. What you got for me?
Man, in this, every day is different. Every day is unique, but I feel like we are in a unique space and a time of opportunity and crisis and chaos. So that being said, I'm just hoping for change. I'm hoping for safety. I'm hoping for healing. I'm hoping for accountability. I'm hoping for justice. But at the end of the day, I'm still hopeful. And, I still believe in the possibility of America, even though it's been one hell of a disappointment. And I don't think it's a lie or a fallacy. I just think it's a disappointment. And for those of us who believe in it and aspire for it, we need to step out and step on the same side of the street so that we can know who's on what side and who's on the other side. And, you know, a lot of times what we talked about tonight and people being non-racist, and they non-racist, and, you know, the not having a conversation with your child about racism. It's not about being non-racist. It's about being anti-racist.
Absolutely.
And at what point are people going to make that distinction of being anti-racist? And then on the other hand, please understand, if you haven't declared yourself by your words and actions as anti-racist, chances are I'm not accepting your non-racist as like credible. Absolutely. So you're gonna have to be more than non-racist. You're gonna have to be anti-racist at this point in this world.
Damn
right.
Other than that, great show, and look forward to this as always next week.
No doubt. Pooh, what you got for me, man? What's your parting shot?
I just want everyone to be cognizant of what's going on, and I guess the defeats and you know, everything that's happening now with both pandemics is going to be in the history books. You know, this point in time, this day, this span, it's going to be in the history books, and you're going to be explaining this for generations to come. And you was here to witness it, and you're going to be able to give that intel to your grandsons and your great grandsons. So definitely be cognizant of what's going on today.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Kind of along the same lines. Choose to be on the right side of history is what I'm saying to folks. We all know that at the time of his death, Martin Luther King was still one of the most hated individuals based on polls in America. And a lot of those people who hated him then are old people now, and they feel differently because they chose not to be on the right side of history in real time. So just choose to be on the right side of history, man. It's not going to hurt you. And this is not, like, equality is not a pizza. Just because somebody else gets a bigger slice of equality doesn't mean your slice gets smaller. It's not a pizza. So just choose to be on the right side of history, man. And it's people out there hurting and literally screaming for life. And it's not going to hurt you to give it to them. And give grace. There's a lot of on both sides. There's a lot of people who are glaring their imperfections at this point, and a lot of groups who are glaring their imperfections at this point. But give grace because we're all going to need it at some point, because this is going to be groundbreaking. So with that being said, guys, thank you. It's been real as always. I can't wait to continue the conversation. But until then, we will talk to y'all next week. Defy life.
Defy life.
Defy life.
We're told that greatness is exceptional when it should be expected. You choose every day to live your life intentionally, without apology for how bright your light may shine. So go be great. Go be brilliant. Go be you. Go defy life. The Defy Life movement is one that speaks to each of us in its own way. Defy Life gear speaks to us all by reminding us that one size does not fit all. Visit defylifegear.com to get fitted for greatness.